I was Howard's adopted bride. He disliked me because I stuttered. It wasn't until his white moonlight returned to China that Howard finally took action to use me as a trouble. He pushed me to his good brother Zachary, help me to pursue Nina. She's easy to deceive. She is an orphan and has never felt warmth. If you give her a candy, she will be devoted to you. But gradually, Howard became more and more uncomfortable with my absence. He couldn't help but call me, Nina, I promised to marry you. It was Zachary who answered the phone. His voice was hoarse. Brother, Nina is not available to answer the phone now. What is she doing? Eating a lollipop. I heard that Howard went crazy that night. Even if he was covered in blood after the car accident, he would never go to the hospital, and kept saying that he would take me home. When Howard called Zachary, I was sitting in Zachary's car. It was raining heavily outside. I was soaked. The phone was connected to the car's Bluetooth, and Howard's nonchalant voice came from the other end. Brother, help me, what's wrong? Zachary talked to Howard while driving. My white moonlight has returned to China, and I'm picking her up at the airport now. Zachary seemed to smile. That smile probably said, is this why Howard left me in the rainy night? Tonight, he and I went out to drink with his friends. Halfway through the car, he suddenly asked me to get out of the car and said he had something urgent. I was left in the rain. I didn't get a taxi, and I ran into Zachary driving past me, and then he kindly sent me home. You also know that I have a child bride, the one who always follows me around, and my mother has to let me take her with me when I go out. Howard's voice was full of complaints. Zachary responded, how could a stutterer be the eldest lady of the Howard family? It was my mother who was superstitious and said that Nina could ward off disasters for me. I didn't see the disaster, but my friends almost laughed me to death over the years. I think it's okay, not funny. Zachary seemed to be comforting him anyway. No matter what, I can't be with her. Besides, my white moonlight has returned to China. She was angry and went abroad because I had a child bride. You have to help me this time, tell me. Zachary didn't refuse. You don't have a girlfriend anyway, so help me pretend to chase Nina. She's easy to fool. Zachary stopped the car at the red light, looked at me with a light gaze, and didn't answer. She is an orphan and has never felt warmth. Give her a candy and she will be devoted to you. Howard kept chattering, as long as you are with her, I have a reason to get rid of her. After that, you can treat her however you want. Don't worry, she knows herself and won't keep pestering you. I smiled with my head down, but my eyes couldn't stop red. He knew I was self-aware and wouldn't pester him, but he still chose to get rid of me in the worst way. I looked out the window at the heavy rain. It turns out that a broken heart can really be a matter of a moment. Zachary agreed to Howard. I looked at Zachary in surprise. I felt that he didn't need to wrong himself to pursue me. Howard said that I was not so thick-skinned that I would still pester him. But I didn't explain. I was not able to speak clearly. I would be laughed at as soon as I opened my mouth. Howard's friends laughed at me. I don't remember if there was Zachary. After he hung up the phone, he asked me, are you going back to the Howard family? I shook my head. And nodded again. If I didn't go to the Howard family, where else could I go? When I was 6 years old, I was adopted from an orphanage by Howard's father and mother. Howard was 11 years old at the time. He was in poor health and had to take medicine all year round. Later, he asked someone to tell his fortune and said that he needed a child bride to ward off disasters. The fortune teller gave me his birth date and I was taken back by the Howard family. After that, Howard's health unexpectedly improved. The Howard family really thought it was my credit and treated me very well. They also asked Howard to keep me with him all year round. I have been stuttering since I was a child. Howard disliked me very much, but he didn't take me with him. The Howard family would not let him go out. He had no choice but to take me with him everywhere. I have always been grateful for the adoption of the Howard family, so I am sincere to Howard. No matter how much Howard did to me, I can tolerate and forgive him. When I was a child, he deliberately left me in the playground. It was Howard's father and mother who finally found me. When I was 12 years old, I had my period and blood was stained on my pants. He lied to me that I had cancer. I left a suicide note and ran away from home. Fortunately, Howard's father and mother found me in time, otherwise I might have jumped into the river to commit suicide for fear of becoming a burden to the Howard family. When he was a little older, his friends laughed at him and asked if he was going to marry the little stutterer. He didn't care about my feelings and refuted in public, saying that he would never marry me. But because Howard's father and mother treated me very well, I also believed from a young age that he would be safe only if I was with him. So no matter how much Howard disliked me, I still followed him. For example, tonight, he left me in the heavy rain, and I didn't get angry. It was only when he pushed me to someone else with his own hands that I finally realized that I was a trouble to him. I didn't want to humiliate myself again. How about going to my house? Zachary asked. He seemed to see what I was thinking. Yeah. Zachary took me to his house. He lives alone. The house is very spacious. I stood in the living room, feeling a little helpless. He found me one of his big t-shirts, take a shower, don't catch a cold. I nodded obediently. After washing in the bathroom, I came out wearing Zachary's t-shirt a little embarrassedly. I have a petite figure. The t-shirt was down to my knees. There was nothing to be shy about. When I walked to the living room, Zachary didn't seem to notice me. When I walked over slowly to ask him where I would sleep tonight, I accidentally saw a WeChat message from Howard on his phone screen. The WeChat message showed a passionate kiss between Howard and his white moonlight Lynn. There was also a sentence below, brother's happiness depends on you. Do you want to take revenge on him? Zachary didn't look back. He should have noticed that I was behind him a long time ago. I didn't say anything. In fact, there is nothing to take revenge on. And I can't take revenge. Howard has never liked me, and nothing I do is useful. Instead, it's just what he wants. No, want. I tried to restrain myself, but I still stuttered. Zachary stood up from the sofa. He was very tall, looking down at me. He said, "Are you an adult?" I was stunned for a moment, and nodded quickly, 20. Zachary's eyes were full of smiles. He said, "Do you know what you are saying? Am I not telling him my age?" Finally, I did not stutter. His deep eyes stared at me closely, and then he said word by word, "You are inviting me to sleep with you." I shook my head quickly. I wanted to explain anxiously. "Well?" Zachary suddenly kissed me, blocking what I wanted to say. I looked at him in amazement. This was an experience I had never had before. Howard had never been close to me. No matter how Howard's father and mother hinted, he was unwilling to have any intimate behavior with me. I was at a loss to bear Zachary's madness. I didn't know when Zachary pressed me on the sofa. He bit my ear and asked me, breathing rapidly, "Have you tried it with Howard?" I shook my head instinctively. "First time?" "Yeah. Are you scared?" Zachary asked me. "No, I'm afraid, actually. I've already made preparations when I came here. Zachary is Howard's best friend, so he will naturally help him." I followed Zachary back to his house. If he slept with me and took a photo for Howard's family, Howard can be with his white moonlight legitimately. This way, I can also repay the Howard family for their kindness over the years. Such a small thing, Ming. It's still pretty, a little painful. I looked at him with tears in my eyes. Zachary had already gotten up from me. He sat on the sofa and took a deep breath. I pulled up my wrinkled clothes. "Don't you want to help Howard?" Zachary looked at my red face. He asked me, "Do you still want Howard?" I shook my head. Very determined. "That's it." Zachary said, "You sleep in the master bedroom tonight, and I'll accompany you home tomorrow. Maybe you, do you dislike me?" I asked him. It turns out that young masters like them really look down on me. Zachary's body seemed to tremble. He said in a suppressed tone, "If you say one more word, I won't bear it. I don't understand." Zachary said, "The room is over there." I got up and left. When I left, I heard Zachary say, "I'll see you off tomorrow." I nodded and smiled sadly. I was really despised. "Go back and pack up." Zachary added. After breakfast the next day, Zachary drove me to the Howard family. What he said was, "I know that I will go back one day and give Howard freedom." As soon as I walked into the hall of the Howard family villa, I heard Howard crying, "I just like Lynn, not Nina, you beat me to death. Do you know that Nina is your child bride?" I heard Howard's father's angry voice. "How can you do something to let her down? That's the child bride you found for me, not the one I wanted." "I don't like a stutterer," the fortune teller said. "Even if I die, it's better than marrying Nina." "Then I will beat you to death today." As he said that, Howard's father started to fight. Uncle. I hurried over and stood in front of Howard. From childhood to adulthood, every time Howard was beaten, I was the one who pleaded for him. Howard's father looked at me, then at Howard, and sighed fiercely. He looked like he was disappointed with his son. Uncle, don't hit Howard, don't force him." I persuaded him. "Nina, Howard has wronged you, don't worry, I will give you an explanation. The position of the young lady of Sioux can only be you." Howard's father said firmly. Howard's mother also quickly agreed. "Nina, don't worry, I won't let Lynn appear in front of Howard again." "Mom, what are you going to do?" "If you dare to do anything to Lynn, I will die in front of you." Howard threatened. Auntie. I have a boyfriend. I quickly pulled Zachary next to me. "I have always just treated Howard as my brother. You don't have to." Zachary quickly spoke. "Uncle and Auntie, hello. Howard's father and Howard's mother both know Zachary. Some can't believe it." Howard's father seemed to understand immediately. "Howard, did you do something to find Zachary to act?" "I didn't." Howard denied, but he was obviously not confident enough. "Nina, I know you are a good child, and I know it's Howard's. I will give you an explanation." Howard's father didn't listen to Howard's excuses at all, and kept comforting me. I was actually very surprised. Why did Howard's father and mother know that Howard and Lynn were together? Howard had already asked Zachary to pursue me. He wouldn't be so impatient to ask for Lynn's status after one night, right? "Nina and I are really together." Zachary said to Howard's father and mother. Nuan came back, on the one hand to tell uncle and aunt about our relationship, on the other hand to accompany Nina to pack up and live with me. Zachary finished speaking. Howard and Howard's father and mother stared at him and said calmly, "Last night, she stayed at my house." Everyone looked at me again. I nodded and stuttered, I stayed at Howard's place last night. The living room was so quiet that it seemed suffocating. I'm going to my room to pack my luggage. I left a sentence and went back to my room under everyone's gaze. I packed my things. Howard's mother walked into my room. "Nina, tell Auntie, are you and Zachary real?" I bit my lip and nodded. "Howard forced you, didn't he?" No. I shook my head. "Auntie, it was me, I did it voluntarily, don't blame Sue. Don't I know what kind of child you are?" Howard's mother was helpless. "Howard was photographed with that Lynn last night. I knew he was going to do something naughty again, he just can't change his bad habits." I kept my head down and said nothing. I just found out that Howard was photographed last night. My phone was out of battery and I kept turning it off, so I didn't see the news. Howard's mother kept chattering, "I don't know how Howard is so blind, he likes that kind of green tea bitch." I quietly packed my things. "Nina, will you come back in a while?" Howard's mother asked me carefully. "I mean, if Howard changes his mind." I shook my head. "Auntie, thank you for your care for so many years. In the future, I will still treat you like my mother, but, there is no Howard." Howard's mother sighed. I didn't know what to say. I just said, "No matter what, this will always be your home." I smiled and nodded. I knew very well that this was no longer my home. Whether Howard married Lynn or someone else in the future, he would mind my existence. I went downstairs with my luggage. Zachary was not in the living room. I saw him sitting with Howard in the tea room. Howard said, "Brother, you are really loyal." Zachary drank tea without saying anything. "Is it the same as what I said? Nina is easy to coax, she will smile if you give her a candy, you don't need to spend any effort." Howard said proudly, "Not bad." Zachary responded. Howard wanted to say something else. "Howard, Zachary." I suddenly spoke. "There is no need to listen to those humiliations." Zachary put down the teacup and said, "Then Nina and I will leave first." Howard seemed to be stunned for a moment. Some emotions flashed in his eyes. The next moment, his face was indifferent. When Zachary and I left, he said, "Nina, Zachary is a famous stern son in our circle, you must seize the opportunity." I looked back at him. "No, I won't let you down." Leaving the Howard family, sitting in Zachary's car. "Ma, please take me, go to school." I asked in a low voice. "Can I still live here during the summer vacation?" "No, I don't know, but you can go ask Chuancheng, May, Academy of Fine Arts." Zachary responded. But in the end he didn't send me to school. He took me back to his villa. I looked at him in confusion. Howard's father and mother are not as easy to fool as you think. Zachary said, "Let them believe that you and I are really dating, and we can only live together." I nodded silently. I know Zachary is just helping Howard in this way. Only when Howard's family accepts Howard and Lynn being together, he will feel at ease to let me leave. Then, where do I live? Where? The room last night. Then, isn't it your room? You live there first. Zachary smiled. The smile always feels meaningful. I didn't think much about it. I don't want to cause trouble to anyone. I also habitually obey the arrangements and won't resist. I thought living with Zachary was just two strangers living under the same roof temporarily. We didn't interfere with each other, but Zachary frequently appeared in front of me. He hired a language teacher for me to try to correct my stuttering problem. He often bought me candies of all kinds. After knowing that I was an art student, he helped me decorate the studio. I have loved painting since I was a child. One person can spend a whole day in the studio. Zachary would come to the studio to sit in his spare time. Later, he simply asked someone to move the desk in, and he worked directly in the studio. Although I don't understand, but after all, I was living under someone else's roof, so I didn't dare to say much. Today Zachary got off work early and came to the studio again. He sat on the sofa, holding a lollipop in his hand, watching me paint. "What are you painting?" he suddenly asked me. Zachary respects me very much and never peeks at my paintings. Now I don't know why he suddenly asked. I don't know how to answer. Because I know Zachary won't come to enjoy it, I paint unscrupulously. Zachary seemed to sense my mood, stretched himself, and changed the subject. "There's a dinner party tonight, come with me?" I was surprised. We've been living together for half a month, and Zachary has never taken me out for social events. "Howard is here too." Zachary said. I nodded. I understood. Zachary wanted Howard to see that we were still together. "The clothes are ready for you, you can change into them later." Zachary handed me the lollipop and left. I also went back to the room and put on the little dress Zachary bought for me. A white little dress with many small diamonds on it and a circle of white fluff on the bodice. The dress was sexy and innocent. I had never worn this before. So when the makeup artist finished my makeup and hairstyle and appeared in front of Zachary, I didn't even dare to look him in the eye. 07 Let's go. Zachary's eyes didn't stay on me for long. For young men like them, it's common to have so many beautiful women around them. I sat in the back seat of his car. Perhaps considering that he was going to drink, he asked the driver to drive the car. He sat next to me. The car was very quiet. How is the language practice going? He suddenly asked me. The teacher said, well, very, much more. Zachary turned his head and looked at me. His eyes were very dark and bright. There was a smile in his eyes. I was nervous, so I couldn't say clearly. I hurriedly explained. What are you nervous about? Are you afraid that I will eat you? Zachary asked me with a smile. I shook my head. I just don't know why, I really get nervous in front of Zachary. He actually didn't do anything to me, and he was 100 times gentler than Howard. It's probably because I'm not familiar with him. I'm not very good at getting along with strangers. Zachary murmured again, you can be nervous for a while. Huh? I didn't understand. Call my name? Zachary suddenly asked. I paid you to hire a teacher, and now I've been studying for so long, can't I check it out? Oh. I nodded and took a deep breath secretly. Howard, Zachary. Zachary frowned. I was also very upset. I was very familiar with calling in my mind, but I didn't know why I stuttered again. Your name is Howard, but you have never stuttered. Zachary said sourly. Has it? I haven't noticed it. But the name Howard has indeed influenced me for many years in my life. Practice well, and you will be punished if you fail next time. Zachary was serious. I bit my lip slightly. Somewhat aggrieved. How can I correct stuttering so quickly after 20 years? The car arrived at the destination. Zachary asked me to hold his arm and walked in. Inside was a high-end banquet hall. There were many people. And I knew many of them. Because Howard would often take me to such places, even if it was not voluntary. But when I appeared with Zachary, it seemed that no one recognized me. Everyone was greeting Zachary, then I asked casually, who is the beauty next to Howard? Howard, who was greeting guests at the moment, seemed to look back at me. At first, it was just a flash, perhaps he felt that she looked familiar, so he turned his head and looked at me and then kept staring at me, until Lynn next to him was a little unhappy. What are you looking at? Howard reacted and said, Zachary is here. Then he brought Lynn over. There were still many people around Zachary, and when they saw Howard coming, they took the initiative to make room. Brother Howard, long time no see. Lynn greeted Zachary enthusiastically. Zachary nodded slightly. Who is this next to you? Lynn looked at me and looked me up and down. Nina. Zachary introduced me generously, my girlfriend. I saw Lynn's face change slightly. She looked at me for a long time and didn't dare to confirm. Nina? Howard, the little stutterer who used to be the class monitor, has grown up so much. Girls really change a lot when they grow up. I am 5 years younger than them. When I was chasing Howard, I was just a half-grown child. People around me also began to whisper. It turned out to be Nina. My God, she has changed a lot, and she is completely different from when she was with Howard. I really didn't think Nina was so pretty before. At this moment, she looks so tender that she is about to burst into tears. It turns out that youth is the capital. No wonder Zachary has such high standards and can even take a fancy to Nina. She is really a dark horse. Lynn asked Zachary in surprise, how did she become your girlfriend? Isn't she Howard's child bride? It seems to be a joke, but the tone is full of sarcasm. After all, in their eyes, the 3 words child bride are already a joke. Zachary gently held me in his arms, smiled and said, it's just a joke from the elders, don't take it seriously. Nina and Howard are just siblings. Then he lowered his head and asked me gently, really? Nina. I nodded. At that moment I felt as if Howard's eyes were always on me, but when I looked over, I saw him looking at Lynn with a smile in his eyes. Maybe it was an illusion. At this time, the lights in the hall suddenly dimmed. A beam of light illuminated the middle of the stage and the host said passionately, please welcome our birthday girl tonight, Miss Lynn and her boyfriend Howard, to make a shining appearance. I just realized that today is Lynn's birthday. On the stage, Lynn and Howard embraced each other affectionately and under the encouragement of everyone, they kissed passionately. It was hard to part. Someone next to him sighed. I didn't expect Howard to be a lovesick person waiting for Lynn for so many years. Lynn is so outstanding, isn't it worth waiting? She is a famous painter abroad and she has made great sacrifices to return to China for Howard. Do you think Lynn is the same as that person? Lynn has been a favored girl since she was a child and she has been carefully raised, but some people grow up to get married. Can they be the same? Keep your voice down. She is now with Zachary. TSK. She really can't live without a man. I bet Zachary will abandon her in half a year at most. In the darkness, a cold voice suddenly appeared. I bet for a lifetime. The 2 women next to me were startled. I am Zachary. The 2 women ran away. I was also pulled to the back garden by Zachary. He said, can you still bear it? I nodded. If I say I am not sad at all, I must be lying. No matter how I treated Howard in the past, I was always cold or impatient in response. It turns out that he is not like this to everyone, but fortunately, it doesn't seem as hard to accept as I thought at this moment. Maybe I have been mentally prepared. Or maybe, I really let it go. Howard, it's not worth it. Zachary said in a deep voice. Yeah. I know. I won't have any thoughts about him anymore. Do you want to go back? Zachary asked me. I nodded honestly. It's not that I don't want to see Howard and Lynn in love, but I really don't like this kind of environment. I didn't like it since I was a child. It used to be just to please Howard. Now it's not necessary. Zachary was about to take me away at that moment. He suddenly pressed me against the wall of the back garden again, leaned over and whispered in my ear, Howard is here. I was slightly stunned. I don't understand why Zachary suddenly cares about Howard's arrival. Do you want Howard to be completely assured of you? Zachary asked. What? I still don't understand. Isn't Howard worried that you will disturb him and Lynn? Now you take the initiative to kiss me, he will believe it. My face is a little red. I have never done such a thing. But the next moment, I took the initiative to kiss Zachary. Zachary seemed to be stunned. His deep eyes were filled with smile. He said, not enough. When you kiss me, remember to stick out your tongue. As the words fell, my heartbeat accelerated, and I was at a loss. My hands were shackled to the wall by him, and I couldn't resist. There was no resistance. 09. The lingering kiss ended. I leaned on his chest, panting. I was also breathing heavily. After a long while, he said in a hoarse voice, let's go home. He took me away. I didn't see Howard. When I passed the lobby, I only saw Lynn surrounded by people. I heard that she was going to hold an art exhibition in China. Everyone was congratulating her. Nina. When I followed Zachary into the car, Howard called me from behind. I looked back at him. Howard said to Zachary, let me talk to her. Zachary looked at me, as if respecting my opinion. I nodded. Zachary went back to the car to wait for me. Are you really together with Zachary? Howard asked me. I nodded. Wasn't this arranged by you? Howard hesitated and finally said firmly, you can't afford it. It has nothing to you. I said lightly, I don't want you to be abandoned by him and go home crying. I won't. I said firmly, you'd better not put your feelings on him, just play around. Howard said with good intentions. He can't be serious about you. I laughed. I really don't know why Howard suddenly said this to me. Isn't this the result he wants? He should be hoping that I fall in love with Zachary. The way you dressed today. Howard looked me up and down. No man would want his girlfriend to dress like this for other men. Hearing this, I was a little unhappy. He said that the rest was fine. I know myself well, and I know very well how Zachary feels about me. But I don't accept Howard's ridicule of my dressing. Every girl has the freedom to dress. Why? Just to please men. I like this dress very much. I tried not to stutter, and Zachary is just respecting my preferences. You don't understand men at all. It doesn't matter. I interrupted Howard. My life doesn't need your concern. After saying that, I turned around and got into Zachary's car. I didn't look back. Instead, Zachary looked back and said with a smile, I told Howard something. He seemed to be unable to accept my attitude towards him. He was used to my obedience. I followed Zachary back home. I was about to go back to my room to take a shower. Suddenly, Zachary hugged me. I screamed. After living together for so long, Zachary had never done anything beyond the rules. Howard, Zachary. You stuttered again. Zachary buried his head in the crook of my neck. You need to be punished. How can you punish me without giving me any time to practice? What should I punish you with? He kissed my neck. Don't do this. From now on, I will kiss you every time you stutter. Zachary's voice was extremely hoarse. His heavy breathing fell densely on my neck. Then he lifted my chin and kissed me deeply. 10. The day before school started. Anaya, my best friend in college, asked me to go to an art exhibition. I didn't expect that the owner of the exhibition was Lynn. I also accidentally bumped into her being intimate with a foreign man. The moment she saw me, Lynn's eyes flashed with a trace of panic, and then she looked calm. After she separated from the man, she walked up to me and said, foreigners are more open. No matter how open they are, they can't kiss mouth to mouth. Are you going to tell Howard? She asked me directly. It has nothing to do with me. Even if you tell Howard, Howard won't believe you. He just thinks you are deliberately trying to sow discord and break us up. I don't want to talk to her much. If I had known it was her exhibition, I wouldn't have come. And after just looking around, there really wasn't anything worth seeing. I said to Anaya, let's go. Anaya also thought it was boring. The advertisement was well advertised, saying that a young painter who returned from overseas had won numerous awards abroad. It seems that the level of foreign countries is just so when we turn to leave. Suddenly, we bumped into a staff member who came in from the opposite direction. The staff member was holding a painting in his hand. When we bumped into him, the painting fell to the ground. When it fell, it happened to hit the vase next to it. The vase fell to the ground and shattered, and the water inside soaked the painting completely. Lynn screamed. Anaya and I were also scared. Nina, you did it on purpose, didn't you? You deliberately destroyed my most famous painting. How can you be so vicious? Lynn screamed. I didn't, on purpose. I stuttered, and the more nervous I was, the more unclear I was. Anaya hurriedly explained, we didn't do it on purpose, and we didn't see anyone behind us. You did it on purpose. Lynn was sure. Nina, you just hate me for taking Howard away, so you're taking revenge on me like this. I didn't, Howard and I have already. I was very anxious. I want to tell Howard right away. Lynn said, and immediately called Howard. Howard came in less than half an hour. For a moment, the originally deserted exhibition was full of people. Lynn burst into tears. Howard, she is really too much. How could she do this to me? It took me half a year to paint this painting. It is the work I am most satisfied with so far. It won the first place in the international oil painting competition. My friends around me also started to point fingers at me. Nina looks like a harmless little white rabbit, but I didn't expect her to be so vicious. She is taking revenge on Lynn for stealing Howard, right? She doesn't even see the gap between herself and Lynn. Lynn is a great painter, what is she? It is important to know yourself. Isn't Nina tied to Zachary? Can Zachary really like her? She was just looking for something new. Now she must have been dumped by Zachary. I kept stuttering and explaining, I didn't mean it, and this painting is not Lynn's. Enough. Howard interrupted me. Nina, apologize to Lynn. Is an apology enough? Howard, are you too partial to Nina? Lynn's painting was sold abroad for over 10 million yuan at an exhibition. Lynn's best friend in China couldn't help but speak up for Lynn. Others were also speaking up for Lynn. How can such an expensive painting be solved with just an apology? Call the police and let her go to jail. That's right, Nina must be taught a lesson. She is too lawless. Howard looked at me with increasingly cold eyes. He said sternly, Nina, you should give up now, Howard. Lynn was a little dissatisfied. How can you help her to pay for it? Isn't this helping the evil? Give my parents an explanation, so that they won't blame me all the time. Howard said coldly. Lynn naturally knew what he meant. It means that after he helped me this time, he will have nothing to do with me. Although I didn't go back to the Howard family during this period, I also heard that Howard's father and mother had never accepted Lynn. After hearing what he said, Lynn stopped talking and looked at me. For Howard's sake, I won't bother you. You apologize, admit your mistakes, and write a letter of guarantee that you will never bother Howard again, and I won't bother you. Everyone said that Lynn was magnanimous. If it were anyone else, they would never let it go. You still won't apologize? Howard said to me impatiently. No, I won't apologize. I refused. Nina, don't be shameless. Don't think my parents will help you. After all, you are just an outsider in our family. Howard said it clearly. I did nothing wrong, and this painting, you really want to go to jail, don't you? Howard said coldly. I don't have so much patience for you. I'll give you one last chance. Will you apologize to Lynn? What happened? Zachary suddenly walked in from outside. Didn't he have an important client to discuss business today? Seeing Zachary coming, Lynn quickly told the whole story, exaggerating it. How much is the painting? I will pay it. Zachary didn't hesitate for a moment. Zachary, you don't have to go this far. Howard stopped him. I know you are loyal, but you don't have to help Nina solve the mess for me. Not for you. Zachary said bluntly, and asked Lynn, how much is your painting worth? Zachary, why do you have to do this? Nina just needs to apologize. I am not such an unreasonable person. If she doesn't want to apologize, she won't apologize. Zachary spoke clearly and clearly. Lynn looked a little ugly. Howard was not much better. The atmosphere was a little stiff. I pulled Zachary's clothes. I don't apologize because I am not wrong. Zachary looked back at me and asked bluntly, so she slandered you? Yeah. I nodded. Lynn was upset. I slandered you? How did I slander you? Didn't it hit my worker, knock over the vase, and destroy my painting? But I didn't mean to do that, and this painting, she copied, plagiarized. I tried to make myself clear. Oh, really? Zachary curled his lips, obviously looking like he was watching a good show. Lynn was upset when she heard me say that. Why do you say I plagiarized? This is my original work. Even if you don't want to compensate me for the painting, you don't have to slander me like this, right? Do you know how much damage this is to an original painter? This painting was published in a rare art magazine 2 years ago. I took out my phone, found the magazine, and found the painting again. And her painting only appeared in a foreign painting competition at the beginning of this year. I was shocked when I saw this painting just now. Then I searched for the painting on my phone and entered some keywords to find the competition Lin participated in. That competition is quite famous abroad but has little influence in China. So I had never seen it before. Zachary took my phone and looked at it, and showed it to everyone generously. It's really plagiarism. The two paintings look exactly the same. Lin was obviously a little flustered. Everyone looked at her. If she was exposed for plagiarism, she would be ruined. This painting is also mine. Lin suddenly pointed at the magazine and said, "This is my early submission. Later I found it a little flawed, so I drew a new one to participate in the competition. Is there any problem?" When people around me heard Lin say this, they immediately started to ridicule me. "Nina, you must think you are very smart, right?" I thought I caught Lin's handle, but the slap in the face came too quickly. I find her funny when I look at her, like a clown. Lin smiled proudly. She probably thought that since she was an unpopular painter, no one would go after her. Or, she could go to the painter privately and use money to settle the matter. Many painters lived in poverty before they became famous, and it takes opportunities for their paintings to go viral. For example, Lin could make this painting famous abroad, but it would be a failure in China. She was confident in convincing the painter, but she didn't know. This painting was painted by me. Otherwise, I wouldn't be sure at first glance that she plagiarized. No, this painting was not painted by her, she is not the original creator. Why do you say I'm not? Lin retorted. I'm not, are you? As soon as she said this, more people laughed at me. I felt that I was humiliating myself. Yes, it's from my country. I said. What? Do you have any shame? Lin said in a high voice. You painted it? Can you paint it? I can answer it. I said firmly. I don't want to waste time with you. Lin sneered and said to Zachary. Since you are willing to compensate her, this painting was bid over 13 million when it was exhibited abroad, I will give you the account. You think too much. Zachary sarcastically said. This painting is Nina's. Not only will I not compensate you, I will also sue you for plagiarism. You believe Nina now? Does she think she can paint such a painting? Lin was full of disdain. It's really funny, I can. I said. I can paint on the spot. Why should I spend time on you to see what you paint? Are you scared? Zachary said to Lin. How could I be scared? This is my work, I just don't want to waste time on her, this is my exhibition. Lin said indignantly. Do you know how much this exhibition costs for a day? I booked the whole place. Zachary waved his hand. How much? If I was short of money, I would just sell my paintings. I only hold exhibitions to let more people see my works. Lin said angrily. You don't understand art. It doesn't matter whether I understand or not. What's important is that I want to prove Nina's innocence. Zachary was determined. Howard. Seeing Zachary's stubbornness, Lin acted like a spoiled child to Howard. Look, your friend bullied me like this, and you didn't say a word. I think Zachary is right. Since Nina said that the painting is hers, let her produce evidence, otherwise, no one can explain it clearly. Howard agreed with Zachary. I saw Lin's face flushed. Friends around also nodded. That's right, let Nina paint and see what tricks she can come up with. If she lies, I don't think anyone will believe her. It's better to let Zachary see Nina's true face and don't make a fool of herself. Seeing that everyone supported me to paint on the spot, Lin gritted her teeth and didn't refuse. Soon. I put the drawing board and paint in front of me. I have never painted in front of so many people, so I was a little nervous. Zachary seemed to see what I was thinking. Don't be afraid, no matter how big the problem is, I will help you. Suddenly, it was as if I had a reassurance pill. I controlled my inner panic and devoted myself to painting. At first, everyone was not optimistic about me, thinking that I was lying and bluffing, until gradually, my painting took shape and people around me exclaimed. Someone began to mutter, Nina's painting is exactly the same as the one in the weekly magazine. I don't know much about painting, but Nina's painting is different from Lin's, and Nina's is obviously more like the original. I have studied painting. From a professional perspective, the warm one is the original, and Lin plagiarized it. I put down the brush. Look at Lin. Lin's face turned red and white. She turned to look at Howard and shook her head. No, I am the original author, Nina just copied, she just copied it very similarly, she is not. Is it true? See you in court then. Zachary used a napkin to wipe the paint on my hands. His eyes were focused and his movements were gentle. My heartbeat seemed to miss 2 beats. My attention was also on Zachary's slender fingers. I didn't notice that someone was staring at me closely. After Zachary wiped my hands, he held my hand in his. He looked up at the others. By the way, in order to find out whether Nina deliberately destroyed Lin's plagiarized painting just now, I just asked someone to check the surveillance. Lin's face became more panicked. Enough, I don't want to pursue it anymore. This is my exhibition, I don't welcome you. What qualifications do you have to pursue it? Zachary sneered. You plagiarized other people's paintings and wronged others. Now I want to pursue it to the end. As he said, Zachary opened the surveillance video on his mobile phone. The video clearly shows that Anaya and I did it unintentionally. It's impossible to pretend. You can't blame me for this. Nina has always liked Howard. It's reasonable for her to want to retaliate against me in this way. Lynn was still making specious arguments. You are so vicious that you think everyone is the same as you. Why don't I think Chi would do this? Zachary mocked. Lynn was furious. Chi bow. Zachary's face suddenly turned cold. He was emitting cold air all over his body, and Lynn was a little scared. Zachary, however, is someone that Howard dare not offend easily. Nina is clean and innocent. Don't ask me how I know. I am her man and no one knows better than me. Zachary clenched his fist, his joints cracking. And you, are the scum you? How can you say that to me, you? Lynn was so angry that her face turned red. Howard, for the sake of brotherhood, I'll give you a gift. Zachary threw his phone to Howard, an unexpected gain from the surveillance just now. Howard opened the video on his phone in surprise and the onlookers quickly gathered around. In the video, the scene of Lynn and a foreign man kissing passionately appeared on the phone screen. Howard looked at Lynn with red eyes. Lynn quickly explained, No, it's not what you see, we are just ordinary friends, ah. Howard slapped Lynn's face hard, stinky bitch. I spent money to hold an exhibition for you, and I fell out with my family because of you, and you treat me like this? No, Howard, listen to my explanation, listen to my explanation. Howard has never been a gentle person. Smashed Lynn's exhibition on the spot. Before Zachary took me away, he asked me, do you want to watch the farce for a while longer? I shook my head. People who are insignificant are not worth wasting my time. The moment I got into Zachary's car, Howard rushed out and grabbed me, produce warmth. I stared at him blankly. Come with me. I shook his hand off. Very puzzled, why should I go with you? When I was 14 I laughed. What did he do wrong? He just didn't like me. I got into Zachary's car without looking back. When Howard tried to stop me again, I followed Zachary back to his house. I will start school tomorrow, and tonight is the last night at his house. I can't tell what I feel in my heart. I didn't let myself think too much, but I still want to express my gratitude. Anyway, he took me in for a vacation. Howard, Zachary. I called him. He didn't say anything, just kissed me directly. I stared at him with wide eyes. Zachary kissed me for a long time. We kissed until we were both out of breath. He said, stutter once, kiss once. Do you have something to do with me? Zachary's eyes came tightly. I didn't dare to look him in the eye. Or do you just want me to kiss you? Zachary asked me with a chuckle. I was stunned for a moment. Then I realized that what he meant was that I deliberately stuttered to call him just to make him kiss me. No, it's not. I explained quickly, I will start school tomorrow. I want to thank you for taking me in during this time. I drew you a picture. Don't give it up. As I said that, I took out the picture from behind. I drew a self-portrait of Zachary. What he looks like when he is working. Zachary looked at the picture for a long time. He suddenly said, you like me? Huh? Otherwise, why would you draw me? I just want to thank you. Then you don't like me? Howard hugged my body and stared at me. Zachary is very good, but I dare not like him. I like you. Zachary suddenly confessed. I was surprised. You opened your mouth, do you want me to kiss you? I quickly closed my mouth. Zachary smiled, but a trace of loss flashed in his eyes. I accept the painting, I will send you to school tomorrow. Zachary looked at me. Looking at me at a close distance, he took the initiative to kiss him. And the kiss was deep. He once said that when you kiss him, you should stick out your tongue. That night, Zachary kept tossing me around until midnight. I leaned limply on his shoulder. My face was red, and I didn't dare to look him in the face. He asked me, do you want a lollipop? I smiled speechlessly. Does Zachary really treat me like a kid? I don't really like candy that much. But I still opened my mouth and licked the lollipop he peeled for me. My phone suddenly rang. I was so tired that I had no strength, and it was Zachary who helped me answer the call. He answered the phone while watching me eat candy. Nina, I promise to marry you. Howard's voice came from the other end. There was clearly a component of charity in his voice. Zachary's Adam's apple moved slightly, and his voice was hoarse. Brother, Nina is not available to answer the phone now. What is she doing? Eating a lollipop. Zachary, I just asked you to pursue Nina, not to treat her like this. Howard collapsed, and his attitude was completely different from when he said he would marry me just now. Didn't you say that giving her a candy would make her fall in love with him? Zachary looked at me with eyes that seemed to be getting deeper and deeper. I did everything according to your method. You. I beg you not to touch Nina. Howard suddenly gave in. Brother, if I am wrong, you let Nina go. I will pick her up right away. Too late. Zachary said coldly. No one can take her away. Hang up the phone. Zachary took the lollipop from my hand directly. I frowned. I just enjoyed it. Zachary bit my ear. Who taught you to eat a lollipop like this? How did I eat it? The next day. I slept until the sun was high in the sky. When I opened my eyes, I saw Zachary holding his hands and looking at me. My face flushed. Thinking of what happened last night, I didn't know how to face him. He said, Howard had a car accident. It was such a serious topic, but he said it lightly. Is he dead? I asked. I was still shocked. It's not that I still like him. It's just out of respect for life. He's not dead. Zachary replied. He just didn't cooperate with the treatment. Why? He said he wanted to see you. Zachary asked me. Do you want to go see him? I thought about it and nodded. Zachary didn't stop me. He helped me put on my clothes and took my luggage away. I felt something indescribable in my heart. I thought that after last night, our relationship would become different. But in the end, I chose to remain silent. Arrived at the hospital. I saw Howard's father and mother anxiously in the ward, persuading Howard, who was covered in blood. Howard was unmoved. Until they saw me, Howard's father and mother hurriedly took my hand. Nina, please persuade Howard. The doctor said that if he doesn't treat his leg, he will really be disabled. I nodded. Then I walked towards Howard. Howard was very excited to see me. This is an expression I have never seen on Howard's face in all these years. He is always impatient with me. Nina, you are finally willing to come to see me? Howard took my hand very hard. He was afraid that I would leave. What do you want to see me for? I asked him coldly. I can come here only for the sake of Howard's father and mother. I was wrong. Howard apologized, his eyes were red. I only realized now that I like you. I don't like Lynn, she is just a regret in my heart. I have fallen in love with you unknowingly. I looked at him dully. At that moment, I really thought I was hallucinating. Otherwise, how could I hear Howard say that he likes me? Can we start over? What happened during this period of time should be treated as if it didn't exist. I love you and will marry you right away, please don't leave me. Howard said affectionately. I was silent for a long time. I really didn't believe that Howard liked me. I still chose to respond, Howard, I don't know if you want to humiliate me. Howard wanted to refute. I didn't let him speak. Even if not, I have to tell you clearly that I don't like you anymore. From the moment you pushed me to Zachary, I completely gave up on you. You know? Howard asked me uncomfortably. When you called Zachary, I was in Zachary's car and heard it clearly. If that's the case, then you should know why Zachary is with you? He doesn't like you just because I asked him to chase you. I don't like you anymore, it has nothing to do with Zachary. I said bluntly. I just don't like you anymore, not at all. I know you are angry with me, you are angry that I am with Lynn, you are angry that I pushed you to Zachary. Howard, I am really angry and I really don't like you. And you don't like me either. You just can't accept it because Lynn betrayed you and I suddenly don't like you. No. In fact, I felt bad when you went home to pack your things and saw you leaving with Zachary. But I didn't notice it at the time and forced myself not to care. But the more I dated Lynn, the more I missed you. I missed you always being by my side and never complaining. Howard suddenly cried. Big tears fell down. That day at the art exhibition, I actually wanted to help you out, break up with Lynn, and get back together with you. But Zachary came, and he helped you prove your innocence and exposed Lynn. Do you know how panicked I was when I saw you and Zachary leaving? Howard looked at me eagerly. At that moment, I deeply realized how much I love you. After returning home, I found both your and my household registration books. I wanted to marry you. We could go to line up in the middle of the night and get the certificate as soon as the Civil Affairs Bureau opened. But, you were with Zachary. I was really devastated at that time. Howard was in pain, but I was really calm. I was so calm that I didn't even feel a little distressed. Has he ever thought about how I felt when he left me to Zachary in order to pursue Lynn? It doesn't matter anymore. Because it's over. That's your business. I said lightly, I don't like you anymore. Maybe, can't you forgive me once? I swear. I can't forgive. I looked at him and told him word by word, because I don't love you anymore. Forgiveness or not, it doesn't matter. Are you in love with Zachary? Howard asked me. It has nothing to do with him. Without him, I won't be with you anymore. Nina, I was wrong, I was really wrong, please believe me, please believe that I love you? Howard kept begging me. But I'm really annoyed. I can finally understand why he hated me so much at the beginning. It's really uncomfortable to be entangled by someone you don't like. I can come here today for the sake of your parents. If you are a little more mature, you shouldn't be so willful. Of course, whether you want to receive treatment in the end is your business. I'm just advising you out of humanitarianism. I won't come again in the future. Nina, do you really not like me anymore? Howard was extremely uncomfortable. Well, I don't like it at all. You don't stutter anymore. He said. Yes. In front of insignificant people, it's as if he doesn't stutter anymore. Walk to the door of the ward. Howard's mother pulled me. Nina, Howard. Auntie, I said when I left that there would be no more Howard. Howard's mother sighed and didn't say much. She knew very well that Howard was wrong between me and me. I also found out later that it was Zachary who arranged the night Howard and Lynn were photographed together. Walk out of the ward. Zachary was waiting for me in the corridor. He sent me to the school to register. After I got off the car, I went to move my luggage. He looked at me coldly. Where to move? Move, to the school dormitory. I answered. So, it's ruthless to pull the dick, right? Who has this thing? But, he took my luggage away. Didn't he just let me go back to school to live in the dormitory? I bought a house near your school, so it's convenient for you to go to and from school. Zachary said, and he was a little angry. Why, you don't plan to take responsibility for me? I was speechless. It was obvious that he did something that was misunderstood. You must take responsibility. Zachary threatened me without waiting for my answer. Otherwise I will expose you and say that you are playing with the feelings of older young men. Do you want to hear what you are talking about? In the end, I still accepted Zachary's domineering confession. I actually don't know when Zachary liked me, and I asked him. He said it was a long time ago. I can't remember how long it was. When I asked him again, he didn't say it. The reason was that it was not glorious, thinking about his friend's girlfriend. But fortunately, friends are useless. After graduating from college, I married Zachary. He said that older young men don't have many years of youth left, and they can't afford to waste it. Howard came on the day of our wedding. After the car accident, Howard went to the hospital for treatment and saved his legs. Later, he also came to pursue me, but I rejected him. During this time, he and Lynn had a very unhappy quarrel. Lynn was ruined by Zachary because of plagiarism and lost all her money. Her only support was Howard, but Howard not only did not help her, but also exposed her cheating abroad, making her feel ashamed to stay in China. I heard that she went abroad to find an old foreign man to marry. But the old man abused her and her life was miserable. Of course, I didn't ask in depth, after all, they were all insignificant people. I just heard people talking about her occasionally when attending banquets, so I knew a little. And Howard, he didn't live a peaceful life in the past 2 years. I don't know if I can really keep him safe. Anyway, after I left him, he had frequent health problems. After car accidents, there were car accidents again. Although none of them were fatal, he was bedridden for half a year. Not long after he was discharged from the hospital, he was hit by objects thrown from a high altitude. He didn't hurt his head, but his arm was broken. After finally healing his arm, he fell into a pit when he went out, and his leg was broken again. I heard that the thyroid gland was not in good condition during the latest physical examination. Howard couldn't help but post a self-deprecating post. Sure enough, God will punish every stupid person. My wedding with Zachary was grand and grand. I heard that Howard cried like a dog in the audience that day. He bumped into a pole when he went out. He cried even louder. Of course, these are not within my scope of concern. After all, I only care about myself and the people I love, and our wedding night tonight.